whispers crawl beneath the skin, a shadow's grin.
The Siege of Sighing Stones. The stones of Stonehearth Keep were not welcoming. They were a clenched fist of dark granite thrust up from the spine of the border mountains, a permanent scowl against the northern wastes. Captain Aldric and his company saw it first as a jagged tooth on the horizon, and with each weary step of their climb, the tooth became a tomb. 40 men once, 32 now, after the flux and the skirmish at Blackroot Ford. They were a ragged tapestry of scars and tired eyes, following the promise of gold and a roof, however cold. The gatehouse yawned before them, its portcullis drawn up like a silent invitation. No challenge echoed from the walls, no face peered from the murder holes. "Place is asleep," muttered Callan, Aldric's lieutenant. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword. "Or dead," replied Aldric, his voice a gravelly thing worn smooth by too many orders. He nodded, and 2 men ventured forward, pushing the immense iron-bound gates. They swung inward without a sound, well-oiled and eager. The courtyard beyond was a geometric puzzle of perfect order. Barracks doors shut, stables empty but clean, a well-swept drill yard. Wood was neatly stacked by hearthside entrances. It was a keep in perfect repair, waiting for an occupant. The only thing missing was the life. "Search it," Aldric commanded. "Pairs, report anything. Not a thing out of place, not a cracked cup. I want to know why." The men dispersed, their boots unnaturally loud on the flagstones. Aldric and Callan entered the main hall. A fire was laid in the great hearth, kindling and logs arranged as if for tonight's lighting. On the long trestle tables, trenchers and cups were set. In the kitchens, sacks of grain, barrels of salt meat, wheels of cheese, a year's provision at least. In the armory, weapons gleamed, oiled and sharp. Every bed in the barracks was made. It was in the captain's quarters they found the only disarray. A ledger lay open on a heavy oak desk. The last entry, scrawled in a frantic, ink-splattered hand, read, "The stones are sighing. Do not answer." The words hung in the cold air. Callan snorted. "Madness, isolation. It breaks men in places like this." Aldric traced the desperate script with a calloused finger. "Maybe, but where are the broken men?" They found no bodies, no signs of struggle, no bloodstain, no scorch mark. It was as if the previous garrison of 50 had simply dissolved into the stone. The first watch was set as a bruised twilight settled into the mountains. Aldric took the wall walk himself, the wind biting through his cloak. It was then he heard it, not the wind, but within it. A low, mournful exhalation that seemed to come from the very battlements, a sound like a tired soul letting go of a long-held breath, the sighing stones. He shook his head, attributing it to the gale funneling through the arrow slits. Below in the gatehouse turret, young Tobin stood his first watch. Tobin had joined for glory, but found only dysentery and long marches. He missed his home. He missed his brother Ewan, who had died in a barn fire 2 summers past. The memory was a constant, private ache. The wind carried the sigh and then something else. A voice, faint, threaded with pain. Tobin, is that you?" Tobin froze. It was impossible, yet the voice was unmistakable. Ewan's voice, cracked with smoke, just as it had sounded in his final moments. "Tobin, help me, it's so dark, it's so cold down here." The voice came from below, from the direction of the inner keep's lower levels, near the old storerooms and dungeons. "Ewan," Tobin whispered, his heart a frantic drum. "How?" "Please, brother, I'm trapped. I can hear you. Please come." It was a ghost's plea. It was his brother's voice. Logic, orders, the captain's warnings, they were smoke compared to the raw need in that cry. With a glance at the empty courtyard, Tobin slipped from his post, his spear forgotten against the wall, and descended the narrow stair into the keep's dark belly. The unraveling. Tobin did not return at the change of the watch. When his absence was noted, a low dread began to seep through the company. Aldric organized search parties, his face like storm-carved rock. "He's a boy, probably lost, probably scared," Kalen said, but his eyes scanned the shadowed arches of the courtyard. They found Tobin's spear by the gatehouse. They found footprints leading to a heavy oak door that opened onto a descending staircase. The air that wafted up was damp and old, smelling of cold earth and something faintly metallic. "Tobin," Aldric's call echoed down, swallowed by the darkness. Only the sighing wind answered. They searched the upper dungeons, the storerooms, nothing. As they prepared to delve deeper, a sound froze them. Footsteps, slow and dragging, from the courtyard above. Rushing back up, they emerged into the gray morning light. Tobin stood in the center of the drill yard. He was pale, his eyes wide and vacant, staring at nothing. His mouth hung slightly open. "Tobin, you idiot, where did you go?" Kalen strode toward him. Tobin did not react. He stood, a statue in a mercenary's gear. As Kalen reached him, a gentle morning breeze stirred the air. It touched Tobin and he collapsed, not like a man falling, but like a sack of grain. His armor hit the flagstones with a hollow clatter. From the neck hole of his gambeson, a stream of fine gray sand poured out, pooling around the metal shell. Within the helmet, through the icelet, more sand trickled. In seconds, all that remained was a pile of sand, a rusted sword, and empty, tarnished armor. The body was gone. A profound silence gripped the men, then bedlam. Some cried out, some drew weapons, backing away from the grotesque pile. Aldric knelt, letting a handful of the cool, dry sand run through his fingers. It was just sand. "Burn it," he said, his voice hollow. "Burn it all." They built a pyre for armor and sand, but the horror had taken root. That night, the sighs returned stronger. Now they carried voices. From the walls, Gareth heard his wife, who had died in childbirth, singing their child a lullaby. The song drifted up from the old granary. He wept, cursed, and held his post for an hour before breaking. From the barracks, Lucan heard the voice of Captain Varus, his first commander, a father figure cut down in an ambush. Varus called him a coward, said he had failed him, but forgiveness was possible if Lucan faced him like a man. The voice came from the latrine drains. Lucan went to prove his courage. Each time, Aldric tried to lock them down, to chain them to duty. "It is not real. It is a trick of the wind or some poison in the air. But how could wine make sand of a man? How could poison mimic a voice you alone knew?" The men, bound by brotherhood and shared guilt, went after their own. They always found them the same way, standing motionless in some courtyard or corridor, only to collapse into inert mineral and rust at the slightest disturbance. The company was unraveling, thread by terrified thread. In his desperation, Aldric searched for answers the previous garrison might have left. He found them in the keep's chapel. It was a small, austere room, devoid of the usual icons of mercy or war. Instead, above a plain stone altar, a fresco filled the wall. It showed not a saint in glory, but a scene of grim sacrifice. Knights in archaic armor were shown not fighting invaders, but piling their own bodies into a gaping, well-like hole in the ground. Their faces were etched with determination, not fear. Above them, a robed figure with no mouth, only a finger pressed to where lips should be. The inscription read, "Sanctus Silentium Legator," Saint Silence the Binder. Beneath the altar, Aldric found a loose flagstone. Beneath it, a narrow set of spiraling stairs led into utter blackness. The air from below was the coldest he had ever felt, and the sighing here was not a single note, but a chorus of faint, overlapping whispers. He did not descend. He sealed the stone. He now knew the purpose of Stonehearth Keep. It was not a bulwark against the north. It was a lid. The descent and climax. The entity, if that was what it was, learned. The sighing evolved. No longer just isolated voices from the dark. Now the very stones of the keep began to replay sounds. Walking the wall at dusk, Aldric and his remaining 10 men heard the clash of swords, the shouts of the previous garrison, "Hold the gate, fall back," echoing as if from a great distance, yet the courtyard remained empty. They heard prayers to forgotten gods, sobbed confessions to mothers, desperate orders given to men long turned to sand. Then the mimicry turned cruel. Aldric in his quarters heard Kaelin's voice from the corridor outside. "Aldric, Aldric, come quick, it's the men, they've found a way out." He burst out, sword drawn, to find the corridor empty. The voice had been perfect. Later, Kaelin heard Aldric calling him a traitor, ordering the others to cut him down. Only by screaming into each other's faces, feeling the warm breath of a living man, did they break the spell. But the trap was closing. The voices grew more personal, more piercing. They used not just the dead, but the living. One man heard his own voice, crying from a cellar, begging for the others to save him. When they opened the cellar, it was empty. The division sowed paranoia. Who was next? Who was already gone, just waiting to fall apart? They were down to 7, backs to the chapel wall, when Aldric understood the full truth. The thing in the well did not just mimic, it consumed. It consumed the soul, the memory, the very essence, and used the hollowed-out recollection as bait, infused with the victim's own emotional resonance. It was a fisher of men, and its lures were their own hearts. "We cannot fight whispers," Aldric said, his face aged a decade in a week. "We cannot kill a sigh, the fresco. It is not a legend, it is an instruction. So we throw ourselves in." Kaelin snarled, his courage worn to a frayed wire, "to become more sand." "No," Aldric said, looking at the stone altar. "We become the lid." He told them his plan. It was not a battle, it was a burial, theirs. They moved as a unit, a final, grim shield wall of 7 souls. They descended into the crypt below the chapel, the air growing so cold their breath plumed and froze in their beards. The stairs opened into a circular chamber. In its center was the well. It was not stone, but a hole of pure starless blackness that seemed to drink the torchlight. Around its rim, the stone was worn smooth, not by rope, but by something else. And the voices, here they were a storm, a cacophony of every lost friend, every regretted word, every fearful plea the keep had ever consumed. They swirled, promising life, promising peace, promising reunion. "Kaelin, your father is here, he says he is proud. Aldric, your first command, the boys you lost at Greymore, they forgive you, they wait for you." 2 men broke, charging the well with a cry. They vanished over the edge without a sound. Their voices joined the chorus seconds later. "Help us, join us." Aldric, Kaelin, and 4 others wrestled the heavy stone statue of Saint Silence from its niche above. It was immense, a ton of carved piety. They pushed it, grunting, muscles cracking, towards the well's edge. The whispers became screams, became shrieks of rage. "Now," Aldric roared, "seal it." The statue teetered on the rim, then slid over, perfectly plugging the well with a deafening, final crash. The chamber shook, dust rained. The silence was instantaneous and absolute. It was a physical pressure on the ears. Then a new sound, a scratching from the other side of the stone plug, then a sigh not mournful but furious, frustrated. It found a crack, a tiny gap between Saint Silence's shoulder and the well rim, and through it, a whisper, perfectly mimicking Kaelin's own voice, slithered out. "Aldric, you've killed us all. It's so dark, let me out." The remaining men whimpered. Kaelin himself stared at the well, his own voice haunting him. The entity had learned its final lesson. The most potent lure was the voice of a living brother, twisted to despair. Aldric looked at his last loyal men, then at the sealed well. The fresco was wrong. Bodies were not enough. The binder had to bind, not with flesh, but with attention, with a story. "Out," he ordered them, his voice calm. "O Captain." "Out, seal the crypt door, wall it up. That is my last order." They obeyed, tears cutting paths through the grime on their faces. He heard the heavy door shut, heard the thud of rubble being piled against it. He was alone with the well. The whisper came again, now his own voice. A failure, a coward, let it end. Aldric walked to the sealed well. He placed his sword on the ground. Then he sat with his back against the cold stone of St. Silence's base. He drew a dagger, and he began to speak. Not a prayer, not a plea. He began to recite the most monotonous, unemotional litany he could muster, a saga utterly devoid of feeling. "We marched 17 miles on the 3rd day of the 3rd month," he intoned, his voice flat. "The road was mud. We ate hardtack. The hardtack was gray. We made camp. The tents were damp. I ate more hardtack. I slept. I woke. The sky was gray. We marched 18 miles." The whisper from the well tried to interrupt, to mimic, to provoke. It cried as his mother. It roared as his enemy. Aldric ignored it. He described belt buckles, the grain of his sword's hilt, the repetitive pattern of stitching on his cloak. He described every bland, insignificant meal, every uneventful watch, every boring administrative duty of his 40 years of life. He poured the vast, empty desert of a soldier's routine into the crack in the well. The entity, a creature that fed on potent emotion, love, fear, guilt, despair, was baffled. Here was no resonant memory to latch onto, no psychic hook. It was a drone, a meaningless list. The whispers grew confused, then sluggish. They tried to match his tone, to create a boring memory of its own, but it had none. Its library was tragedy and longing. It fell silent, listening, searching in vain for a key that was not there. Aldric talked. His throat grew raw. He talked until he had no water left. Then he used the dagger. He began to carve, not on the statue, but on the smooth rim of the well itself, around the great plug. He carved names, the names of every man in his company: Tobin, Gareth, Lucan, Kalen. He carved the names of the previous garrison, as many as he could remember from the ledger. He carved names he invented for the ones lost to time, a ring of remembrance around a prison of silence. As he carved, he continued his dry recitation. The 15th mile was uphill. A rock was shaped like a badger. I saw a bird with a brown wing. His world shrank to the scrape of steel on stone, the dry whisper of his own failing voice, and the profound, listening silence from the well. The sighing had stopped. Resolution and twist. Years passed, borders shifted. Stonehearth Keep was deemed cursed, then forgotten, then merely a historical oddity. A new lord, ambitious and skeptical, took the borderlands. He heard the tales of the sighing stones and laughed. He ordered the keep reopened, garrisoned. His men cleared the overgrowth from the courtyard. They found piles of odd, rusted armor, but no bones. They found the chapel. They found the crypt door, walled up with incredible care. Intrigued, the Lord ordered it broken open. The air that spilled out was dust-dry and still. Their torches illuminated a small, circular crypt. In the center, a massive stone statue of a silent saint lay slumped, plugging a dark hole. And seated with his back against that statue was a skeleton in the remains of a captain's gear. A rusted sword lay across its lap. One bony hand still clutched a dagger. The other arm lay outstretched, its finger bones pointing to the well's rim. The Lord approached, etched into the stone around the sealed well. In a minute, frantic, beautiful script that covered every inch were names, thousands of them, a river of identities swirling around the abyss. Some were crude, some elegant. They covered the floor, they climbed the walls, and right before the skeleton's seat, the last name, carved deepest of all, was his own. Aldric. The Lord leaned closer, his breath held. The silence in the crypt was absolute. No sigh stirred the dust, no whisper echoed. The only sound was the distant, real-world sigh of the wind far above, through the arrow slits of the keep it could no longer touch. The siege was over. The binder had finally bound, not with a shout but with a whisper, not with a prayer but with a list, and with the names of the dead holding the silence in place forever.
Shadows in the